All right, everybody, for those of you who don't know, my name is Michael Forrest, and welcome to I Am Possible. Now, before we get going, I'm going to have to ask you guys if, you cannot send me any text messages while I'm up here because, when you're moving around and you're doing the whole hosting thing, right, you get hit with a wall of text, it can really throw you off. If you have anything like that, please save it till the end of the event, and I would appreciate that very much. All right, also, if you could stay clear of this, top step here, this will, prevent anybody from really blocking the screen too much. People can see the display behind me. Give you a little bit of room to move around, do that whole hosting thing, right? Now you're going to notice in your menu wheel in the lower left that there is a microphone icon at the top. And when that microphone icon is clear, that means we can hear everything that's happening in your environment, right? So we've gone ahead and we've turned that to red, and this means that you mute it. And when you mute it, if somebody comes into your space and says, hey, are you still on that thing? You feel free to answer them because we're not going to hear any of that, right? Likewise, if you've got a barking dog in the background, you're not going to face social ruin back at the campfire, right, by becoming known as the avatar that suddenly started barking during this event. But just because you're muted doesn't mean you can't express yourself. You're going to notice that there's a pink cheat smiley face in your menu wheel there. And when you click on it, your emoji panel is going to open up, giving you a wide variety of options with which to express yourself, right? You're going to notice if somebody shares something really deep and powerful and it touches you, you can throw it up, like throw up the hearts there and show the love, And, maybe somebody tells a story here today where they, swung across some quicksand, Tarzan style, right? And you're very impressed. You can throw up the applause like that, right? Make them feel good, show you support. Maybe somebody tells a story that resonates with you. You want to show them you smiling. You can do that with the smiley emoji. Maybe they tell a sad story, right? You can show them you frowning. You'd be like, oh, that's really sad, man. That just touched me right here, man. I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling it deep, man. Actually, this would be deep, right? I'm feeling it deep. This is just a sad, sad story, right? Also, if somebody says something funny, maybe they tell a funny story, you can show them they're laughing with the silly face emoji right here. And then there's this thing. This is by far the most distracting of all the emojis, right? When you press this, it's not to ask a question or to get on our list, right? We'll be talking about that in just a moment. But this is to show me that there's a problem. Like if I sound choppy or, maybe somebody sets the display on me behind me on fire because they've had enough, maybe one of our moderators get carried away. Really should have rethought that slide though. Because I always do that bit about setting the display on fire, and this one actually has flames. That's not what I mean. All right. But yeah, if there's any kind of technical problems, listen, that's going to be our agreement. You guys can help me out by letting me know by raising your hand, up there. Whoa, some guy just threw himself off the ledge there. That's all right. I didn't realize the show was that bad. Okay. All right. We're going to have to pick it up here. All right. But yeah, there's also an X in the middle of this emoji panel, and that will close it. It's a good idea to keep it open during events like this. And in this way, it gives me feedback, lets me know how I'm doing. The people that tell stories today, it's going to offer them some encouragement, which is a good thing. But you can, you can close it if you want, but it's a good idea to leave it open. And also it lets people around you know what you're experiencing. So if the person next to you starts going like this, that means they found something funny, right? And you may not agree. You might be like, well, I don't agree with that. No, I'm going to go stand over here. And you can do that because this is VR, except for this top step area because we've already kind of agreed to that, right? Okay, wow, we got everybody jumping off here. Okay, that's just sad. All right, but yeah, that can happen. Got to rethink the space. Maybe find some way to prevent that. Because it's just sad when people do that. All right, but yeah, let's get going here now. What is I Am Possible? Now, I Am Possible is an event, right, in Altspace where we are going to trade stories about a time when you yourself or somebody or maybe a story you read or a movie you saw, something like that, overcame very difficult odds, right? Or and did something that you yourself didn't think could be done, or maybe your friends and family didn't think you could do it, and then you ended up doing it, right? Doing that whole thing. Wow, this is really bad. Thu, it's really, yeah, it's really bad, man. That's not working out for you. That's good. Maybe if Thu could escape from the fire, that kind of thing, right? So that's what we're going to do today. And in the meantime, the way we're going to work this is you're going to notice in your lower right, a raise hand button is going to appear as if by magic. And when it does, right, you're going to want to press that raise hand button if you want to share a story here today. But before you do, please keep in mind that we do record these events on YouTube. This will be going out on YouTube in a couple of weeks. We get some usable content today. And, if you do want to feel like Altspace famous, you'll see Raven and I floating up in the air there, right? That's our YouTube camera. So if you want to feel Altspace famous, you just turn around and wave, be like, hey, YouTube, how's it going? What's going on? We got a lot of people here today. We got Drift King. We've got Thu trying to escape the depths of the fire there. This is not something that we did to him. This is something he chose to do himself. I'm just saying. All right. So, yeah, we've got that. Now, but the way it's going to work is if nobody raises that hand to tell a story, I'm going to keep going because you know what? Pauses are the natural enemy of the Altspace event host. Can't stand it. All right. So before we get going, let me just give everybody a little bit of background of how this event came to be. We started this off as a one-time event. Really weren't expecting that much, and we actually had a pretty decent crowd that day, and I had some good discussions where people were trading stories, and I found that it wasn't the word impossible itself. I'll tell you why that's kind of an issue for me, but it's sort of, it's not the word itself, but our relationship to the word that kind of limits us, right? And my background with this word, I got started when I was growing up as a kid in Brooklyn, New York. There was this one summer, and I had these, bullies chasing me down every day, and they chased me into this alleyway, and they beat me up, right? And this happened every day. And every day they would tell me, don't run, escape is impossible. Right now, I thought I knew what this meant. I thought impossible meant you couldn't do the thing, right? So, I try to fight back and don't fight back. It's impossible, right? So after a while, I stopped, I just kept going in there and they just kept coming at me. And, I just accepted it. But my dad, he owned a bar at the time. And one day a man came into the bar with a shopping bag. And, he comes over to the bar, he has a few drinks and he goes to settle his tab. And when he does, he asks my dad, he says, you have any kids at home? And my dad says, yeah, I got a couple of boys, and he says, oh, they're going to love this. And he takes that shopping bag and he puts it right up on the bar there, right? And my dad, and he slides it right across. And my dad, he looks in the shopping bag, probably thinks it's the biggest tip he ever got. But instead of a sack full of money, it was a stack of Batman comics, right? And so, he takes them home and he slides the first of many under my bedroom door. In the morning when I got up, I read this thing. Now, I didn't read this like, a comic book. I read this like it was an instruction manual, right? And I took all these glass marbles and I put them in an old backpack and I modified it. I put a little drawstring on it and I went outside, to do kid-like things, to play and to do all that kind of stuff, right? And, this, as usual, those bullies chased me down the alleyway again, right? But this time I reached back and I grabbed on that drawstring and I yanked really hard and all those glass marbles, well, they clattered on the concrete behind me. I could hear them going, but I kept on running. And then for the very first time, I made it to the garages and there was this concrete wall back there. I managed to climb up on top of that garage. And you know what? Right, I looked down that driveway in that alleyway there, and all of these kids, they were all falling down. I started laughing. They tried to get up, they'd fall back down, and I couldn't stop giggling. Right, I was laughing all over the place. And then I stopped laughing because I realized I had just done what they said could not be done. I had just done what they said was impossible. Right now, I thought people needed to know what this word really meant. So I went to the library and the statute of limitations is up so I can finally confess my crime. What I did was I went in the dictionary of every dictionary I could find in that library. I looked up that word impossible and I crossed it out with black magic marker, like permanent, man. That ain't coming back, right? And this way, if people were looking up impossible, they wouldn't be able to find it. So I thought I was doing a public service, right? Turns out you're not supposed to do that kind of thing in a library. But yeah, that was, I thought, people had to know, right? And ever since that time, every time I hear that word impossible, listen, I take that as a dare, man. I just keep on going, right? And, and I think that's a good way to be. Like somebody tells you can't do a thing, well, you just keep on going. All right, now, if anybody has a story like this that they want to share where they overcame difficult odds or they pushed through something difficult in their life, just press that raise hand button and you're going to get on that list. And if not, well, I'm going to keep on going because, like I said, those pauses, we don't want to have those pauses. We don't do those pauses here. All right, there's nobody on the list, so I am going to keep on going. All right, and this one here is one of my favorites. All right, now, or in the early days of the U.S., there was a gold miner looking for gold. Right. The whole prospecting days, the gold rush was on, and this man comes into possession of a gold mine. And when he gets his gold mine, he'd work in it every day. He'd work really hard looking for his gold. And at the end of every day, he'd go into town. And once he got into town, there's a saloon there. And he goes into the saloon and he, has a few drinks to wind down the day. Right. And, a man came up to him and it says, listen, I'll take that mine off your hands. I'm willing to buy it from you. And the old miner, there's no way I'm selling this mine. I know there's gold in there. I can feel it in my bones. I just know it. I'm going to keep on going. And you're not taking this mine from me, man. This mine is mine. I've been wanting to say that for a few weeks now. This mine is mine. I think that works. All right. So what happens was, he keep working his mine. And every night he came into that saloon and he looked a little bit more beat up. He was getting tired. He was getting run down. He didn't know how much longer he could do this thing. And every single day that man would ask him to sell him the mine. And every day that miner would tell him, this mine is mine. I'm not giving it away. There's no way. And, then all of a sudden the miner, he had one of those days, and we've all had days like this, right? One of those days where nothing goes right. Days like, his fuses were wet, his pickaxes were breaking, that mining cart tipped over and he kicked it and he, kind of broke his toe a little bit there. He wasn't having it. And then he goes into the town, he goes in that saloon, and he's mad and he's run down, he's all beat up and haggard. And you know what? That man comes right up to him, and before that man could even ask, the miner says, you know what? I'm going to sell you that mine. You can have it, right? And so he sells it to him for a good price. And a few days later, the miner comes into that saloon and sees that man, and he's all happy, and he's celebrating. He's all like jacked up, and he's buying drinks for everybody. There's music playing. He's in a good mood that day. And the miner goes up to him and says, what's the occasion? And the guy says, well, that mine you sold me, we struck gold. We found it. And the miner's like, oh, man, you got to tell me, how close did I get? And the guy says, well, listen, we only dug about 3 feet. right? So, for the rest of that miner's life, every single time he didn't think he was going to make it, every single time he got stuck in his life, right? What he would do is he would tell himself, I'm just 3 feet from gold, right? And life's like that, man. Whenever you get close to a goal and you meet with an obstacle, right at that moment that you're about to quit, that's usually about the time that you're going to succeed. Right. So if you just push through a little bit more, a little bit harder, you're going to find that thing that you thought was impossible, that thing you thought that your friends and family said you couldn't do. That's the very thing that you're going to get done. All right. So let's see. We don't have, oh, wow, nobody? Wow, I thought that was some pretty good material. Nobody's raising their hand. Okay, cool. If you do have a story that you want to share, just press that raise hand button. At a time where you overcame difficult odds in your own life, maybe a time where you didn't think you could do the thing, or your family said, "Oh, you're never going to be able to make that jump on your bike," and all of a sudden you do that thing, right? We're going to want to hear about that. Please bear in mind that this is going out on YouTube, and you may run the risk of running Alt Space famous or something like. But if you do tell a story today and you regret it, you're like, "Oh no, my mom's going to hear that." What you're going to want to do is just see me after the show, and we'll make sure it doesn't make it in, because we can edit this stuff out. All right, so yeah. Let's see. So nobody's pressing that raise hand button, so I'm going to keep on going with another one. In the early 80s, there was this couple. They had a kid that was about 4 years old, right? And at the age of 4, he could already speak 3 languages, and his parents were super proud of him. He was a great kid. But gradually they started noticing he was like slurring his words. He was bumping into furniture, and he just started school around that time, and he was getting into fights with the other children. And the parents were like, "This isn't our kid." So they took him to the doctor to find out what was wrong, and they did all these tests. And the doctors, like, they couldn't tell, what was going on, but the parents, they knew something was wrong. They could feel it in their bones there, so they kept having these tests done. And gradually, the son was diagnosed with a disease I have no business trying to pronounce. It's commonly known as ALD. And in this disease, it's like degenerative. And they told him, your son, he only has a couple of years to live, right? And, the parents were naturally very upset. And the doctor said, listen, here's a support group, and you got to come to terms with this, because this is going to happen. And the parents said no. They refused to accept it. So they went to more doctors who told them the same thing, right? The support group even came to their house, and the man, he closed the door, and the guy's face is like, no, we're going to fight this thing. And they keep telling him, this can't be fought. There's nothing you can do. There's no cure for this, right? And now the parents, they only had a high school education with regard to like math and science, but they got access to this medical library, and they started studying. They started teaching themselves the language of math, of science, of chemistry, and gradually, over time, right, the more they did this, the more stuff they were picking up, and they learned about this oil that has this property of separating the lipids from the blood, right? And they went to the doctors very excited, and the doctor said, "Listen, you're just a couple of lay people. I understand you being excited about this, but you got to leave this to professionals. You got to come to terms with the fact that your son's not going to make it, right? So what you're going to do, right, is just, go home, spend as much time as you can with him." And so what happened was, but they didn't take that, right? They started writing letters to all these chemists and pharmacies asking if somebody could refine the oil for them, right? And, this is back before the internet was really big, and this is before they had email and all that. So they were writing all these letters by hand. They were making all these expensive phone calls, and they were trying to get this done. And then one day, one of their letters lands on the desk of a chemist who was about to retire. It was his very last day. And he reads this letter, and he's so moved, he's so touched by it, that he says, "You know what? I'm going to produce this for you." He writes him back, and he says, "But we're going to have to call it something. And if okay with you guys, I'd like to name it after your son." So they called it Lorenzo's Oil. They even made a movie out of this, right? And, what happened was they started administering this to the son's diet, and they started giving this to the son. And they found that when they had the blood tested, that the disease began to slow, right? And then the disease stopped advancing, right? And rather than live a couple of years, the son lived to the age of 28, where he eventually died of pneumonia. And yeah, it was somewhat related to complications from the disease if they had caught it earlier. And that's when the parents said, "You know what, right? We're going to make sure everybody knows about this." So they created a foundation where they started giving this oil to anybody that got diagnosed with this. So what happened was 2 ordinary people said no. They refused to accept that word impossible. They kept on going, right? And they were able to change thousands of lives. And that's kind of our hope when we had this event, was that people would come here, and maybe they're in a difficult relationship. Maybe they're facing a really difficult challenge at work or at school. And, this event would maybe, like, somebody would tell a story, and it would inspire them to keep on going in their own lives. About a few weeks ago, we had somebody here who had been to our events, and they were about to quit a project, right? And they had been to one of our events, and somebody told a story that touched them, and they kept on going, and they actually got the project done, and they came back just to thank us, and that happened on a day where I myself was about to give up. I was about to stop doing this event because our audiences were getting smaller, and I figured, okay, well, we're probably done with this one. Let's move on to the next one, because we got some really great content coming out soon. I figured I'd focus on that. And then on the day that I thought was going to be our last show, that person came to thank us, right? And so I said, you know what? If we helped one person, maybe we can help more. So we're going to keep on going. So that's what we did. We kept on putting on the shows, and we're still doing it, and we're still enjoying it. And as long as it's fun, we're going to keep on doing it. All right, let's see. So let's see here. Now, if anybody has a story they'd like to share today, just press that raise hand button. You'll get on my list. And as soon as there's a pause between stories, I'll call on you because the All Space event hosts can't stand pauses. We just don't like them. So yeah, that's so I'll keep on going there. All right, so this one actually comes from my own life, and it's basically how I started VR. All right, which is kind of not the same way everybody else starts VR. Everybody just usually puts on a headset and that's it. In my case, it was a little different. Now, when I was living in Brooklyn, New York, I had I worked from home, so I was in my apartment a lot. Pretty much 24/7, unless I had to go out and see a client or something. And what happened was I go out once a week to have breakfast with my family. And they started noticing I was acting a little different. Like my words were slurring, stuff like that. I was bumping into stuff. And gradually I started getting more and more confused. Like it used to take me all day just to figure out how to write a check, and the business was slowing down. And I found I couldn't do the things I used to be able to do. And I didn't know what was going on. Right. And, my parents, they got me out of there because, they had said when they came to visit me that day that there was something wrong with the air in the apartment. It's not that it smelled. My mom said it felt like there was a presence. And I'm not talking like ghosts or anything. You could tell something was off, right? So when they got me out of there, they had the air tested. And it turns out that only 10% of the air sample that they took was actually breathable air, right? The rest of it was made up of what they call toxic mold or black mold. It was two of the deadliest types, right? And what happened was, once I got out of there, my body began to fight, right? And this took the form of my heart racing really fast for like 20 hours at a time. Like picture yourself running and not being able to stop. That's what it felt like, right? And I would get like really, really severe like dizziness. Like once, I fell, I hit my head on the sink. I'm looking around, my then girlfriend's apartment, and they're trying to figure out, all right, well, if I fall over here, that's a good place to die. It was not a good thing. And then I spent that whole year on my back, and I had to get rid of everything I owned. Right. It was horrible. And then my family, they gave me this Apple iPad so I can reconnect with the world. I started chatting with people and, to keep me company because before that, all I had was a radio. Right. And I used this pad and I'd read about Allspace at that point in time. Right. And I got super excited. I saw an ad for an Oculus Go and I said, you know what? I'm going to get one of these. I'm going to get one of these and maybe it'll help me with my mobility. Because at this point, I was in a bed like all day, every day. Right. So I get this headset. And I put it on, and if anyone's been to Go Time, you hear me tell this story where the first thing I did was I looked up. That's all true, right? When I came in and I looked up and I saw that sky, right, it looked real to me. That's like the sky I remember. And what happened was I was grateful for this, so I started volunteering for Allspace, right? I started moderating events, and then I was watching the host, and I go, I bet you I could do this. I bet you I can get up there, and I can do the whole voice thing, and I bet you I could do this. Now, the first time I started out, right, didn't go too well. Because I had that rapid heart thing going on, that dizziness, right? So I'm up there and I'm going, I feel bad for my first audience because that's pretty much the whole show right there. You just magnify that by 1,000 times. That's what I was doing, right? And I kept on doing it, right? And now, over 300 events later, I'm starting to present standing up, right? I started playing that Beat Saber, right? I started playing that Echo Arena, right? My balance is getting better. I'm standing up more and more. The space that you're standing in, we called this impossible once, right? Because all we had was an Apple tablet and we had an old laptop that couldn't run Unity for more than 15 minutes at a time without crashing, right? But we kept on going, right? And then eventually we were able to get a computer and I had to sit all day at that thing. First few times I felt like I was going to fall out of the seat. But you know what happened? We kept on going, all right? Because we don't like that word. We don't like saying impossible. We do say it. We were midway through. We're like, I remember trying to join this fire pit in here, to this bottom ring here. And I'm like, it's not going to happen. It's impossible. And my wife, Morgan Farr, she goes, no, you got to keep on going. So I did. And now we got the Ravenhall Forum. We all get to hang out and trade stories and do these kind of events, right? And then, so I kept on going in Allspace. My mobility, it really helped my mobility a lot. Right. And, so listen, if you're facing something like that, remember, listen, I don't believe in that word impossible, but I do believe in all of you. All of you here are capable of more than so much more than you know, so much more than you realize. And if anyone tries to stop you from doing what you want, because listen, when I first started out in Allspace, I don't think Allspace likes me telling this story, but a lot of people weren't happy about it. Right. I was an Oculus Go user at the time. And at the time, Oculus Go users weren't very popular. Right. So I was like, I would get text messages from people saying, get off the stage. Right. And I'm like, oh, man, that doesn't feel good when that happens. Right. So, yeah, they actually, gave us a little bit of a hard time, but we kept on going. And now over 300 events later, we really enjoy doing this for all you guys. And so that gives you some idea of what's possible. All right. Well, let's see here. We had time for one more. Is anybody, or actually a few more? Is anybody want to add anything? Like, tell your own story here, or about a story where you were able to overcome difficult odds in your life. Maybe you did something that you didn't think could be done. Maybe your family said, you know what, there's no way you can do that thing, and you go on to do that thing, and you're like, ha, I am possible. Anybody got a story like that? You just press that raise hand button. It'll get you on the list, and we'll, just remember, for those of you just coming in, all of our events are recorded it. So this will eventually go out on YouTube. So if you got like a story you're like, you don't want anyone finding out about because your mom's watching your video going, this is that, that sounds just like you. Kind of looks like that avatar you told me about too. Maybe don't want to do that. And if that's the case, you do something like that. Just see me after the show and we'll take it out. All right. So nobody pressed the button. Okay. So that's cool. Like I said, I can't stand the pauses. I'm going to keep on going. And I got another one from my own life. And this is one time when in my late teens, I was getting really into like hiking and camping and stuff like that. Right. And, my friend Chris and I went to upstate New York, this place called Lake George. Now, that year had been a very rainy year. There was a very rainy season, and they had like all these beautiful waterfalls coming down into the lake, and we went to explore one, right? So we were up on top of this waterfall, and we're messing around, and all of a sudden, my friend Chris, he slips, right? And when he slips, the water carried him right into my legs and knocked me over, and both of us just exploded right over the falls, right? We only dropped about, 12 feet, big splash, right? And, we come up out of the water laughing because, we weren't hurt. And then as we go over the shore, we're laughing, and all of a sudden, these huge clumps of mud and giant rocks are coming down as we're trying to climb up out of the water. And you know what? We stopped laughing. We started getting scared because it's looking like more and more serious, right? And, we're treading water, and we're like, what are we going to do? And I look across the lake, and I see this big boulder where our campsite is. I see the tents and all this. And I said, let's just swim for it. We were good swimmers and stuff. But I don't know if you guys have ever tried swimming fully dressed wearing construction boots, like steel toe construction boots, right? That's heavy. You don't swim, you kind of drag, right? You kind of going like kind of straight up. Kind of looks like, you're swimming, but you're standing, right? It's not a lot of fun. Right? So, we're swimming, and all of a sudden, Chris calls out to me, and he said, and I go, what's up? We stopped, we're treading water, right? I go, what's up, Chris? What's going on? And Chris goes, listen, I don't think I'm going to make it. And I was like, uh-oh, I was getting a little scared here, right? And I look across the lake, and I look back to where we came from, and I realize it's the same distance either way. We're right in the middle. Right. And if we go back to where we were, there's no guarantee we're going to be able to get out of the water. And, we'll be far away from help. We won't have our supplies. Right. So it's a pretty dangerous situation. So I convinced Chris to keep on going. Right. And as we're going a little bit further, and all of a sudden I start thinking I'm not going to make it. And I call out to Chris, and I'm like, I think this is it. Right. And I'm really worried. I'm like, I don't think it's supposed to end like this. Right. I don't know what's going on. But all of a sudden, I don't know if you guys ever seen one of them Rocky movies. Right. That old coach guy, all of a sudden Chris sounded like that, right? He started yelling out. He goes, dig in. He goes, we're not going to take this. Keep on going. Keep on pushing, right? And he keeps saying stuff like that, right? And man, it worked. I kept, I pushing harder. I'm digging in, and every single part of my body was on fire, man. It was painful. But eventually we did reach the shore, and we pulled ourselves up onto that boulder there, right? And we both laid there, looking up at the sky for about an hour. Neither one of us said a word. And then finally Chris says, we made it. Just like that. Right. And, everything hurt. We had to stay an extra day just to recover from this. But I tell you, if you keep pushing like that, you can do things that you don't think you can. All right. And that's why, again, I say, I don't believe in that we're impossible, but really seriously, what you guys are capable of, you're only scratching the surface. All right. So just dig in a little bit and you'll make it, whatever challenge you happen to be facing now or in the time, in the days ahead. All right, now, at the end of our events, we typically take everybody flying, right? And today's no different. And the way we do this is with a special effect that we have that we once thought was impossible, too. This is really tough to get this thing going, so I hope you all enjoy it. But before we head out, if you enjoyed our content today, please go to altvr.com. And when you get there, in the upper left, you're going to see a link that says channels. And when you click on that link, you get taken to you'll see all these all-space events, and the really nice stuff that they have available. And down toward the bottom, not that it means anything, you'll see Ravenhall events like it says on that back wall there. Now, when you click on that, you get taken to our event page. And there we have a join Discord button if you feel like saying hello. If you have any questions about Allspace or whatever, feel like hanging out, feel like maybe helping us put on events like this, that's the place to do it, right? And you're going to also notice on the top right, it's the most important button on the internet. That's where they keep it, right? It's the subscribe button. And when you press this, it lets Allspace know that you enjoy our content. And we don't get paid to do this. So every time we see that number go up, it makes us feel good, almost as good as when somebody subscribes to our YouTube channel, because that is the best. And if you're watching out on YouTube, thank you for watching. All right, so now let's get going. Let's try doing this here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this button here. And when I press this button, you're going to see a Ravenhall Talon hovercraft come up over that wall over there, and it's going to fly across this forum space, and it's going to land on that, the landing pad right there at the top of the stairs. All right. And it's a cool effect. I hope you enjoy it. All right. So direct your attention to that wall, and I'll go ahead and I'm going to press this button here. Let's go. Here we are.
Ravenhall Talon aircraft en route to your position. Please stay clear of the landing pad. Thank you.
All right, here it comes. Now, again, you guys can fly this aircraft if you'd like to, just by coming out with us to the Ravenhall Flight Academy. You can have a chance to fly this if you'd like. And the way we're going to do this is we go walk on the top of those stairs there. We'll meet it as it comes down. So come on, everybody, let's head on out. All right, awesome. Here we go. Coming down. It's going to come down pretty low, but don't worry, it won't hit you. We haven't had any accidents so far.
Talon aircraft is now boarding for transport to the Ravenhall Flight Academy. Please step into the blue light. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'll see you next time.